also think our vaccination rates are very good. Our teenagers, I just was looking at before our meeting, our adolescent vaccination rate, we're at 90%, which is really good, having an actor, a Tdap, and both HPVs for our teenagers. That's a level of relationship. People are skeptical sometimes of the HPV vaccine, but if they've known us for years and they trust us and we say this is the right vaccine for your child, we get higher uptake from that. So
Now, let me ask
yeah,
you a question. In Maryland, is HPV required for school or not? Is it Virginia? It's a requirement.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so because we have some families that don't get it and
Yes.
they don't need exemptions.
Okay.
And the funny thing is that sometimes people look at requirements as what's necessary, but it's not really the best medicine or best care.
Correct.
So
It just makes it easier because you got it.
it makes it
It
easier.
makes
Yes,
it
yes,
easier.
yes. There have been times when people will say, is that required? And mostly for the 4-year vaccine. Yeah, I think the schools are going to want to see that. And I'm like, okay, we'll get it. I'm like, okay, then we'll do that then.
And
Um,
then are you giving the HPV at 11 or 9?
11,
11?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I understand the reasoning for 9, but we're not having an issue with uptake. So we give it 11. We tend to have them come back in 6 months. And if they don't come back in 6 months, we complete the series at 12. 9-year-olds are still a bit young. They don't love the vaccines. And so if I can just limit the number of times they get vaccines, that works for us. And
Because in New York, the QIP, the quality incentive programs, measure you at 9, not at 11.
yeah,
So you're forced to give it at 9.
yeah, I would if there was a compelling reason to give it. I just don't think we have a problem giving it at
Yeah.
11. And I like not having to give vaccines an extra visit. And I don't think the outcomes are any less by waiting 2 years. So I'm happy just to keep them at 11.
And then it's scheduling a year in advance. Doesn't that just cause problems? Because you now have 3 pediatricians. Somebody's going to
Um,
be on vacation.
yeah,
What do you
well,
do?
okay. Oftentimes you'll know a year in advance when your vacations may be ish.
Okay.
You have kids that are when they're out of school and when they're going to camp and stuff, you run around that. But if you have an idea you're going to take a week off in June or July, then just stick it on the calendar a year in advance so you have space there. And if you happen to get the wrong week, then as you're getting closer, you have a week that's open to move those appointments to the week you're actually off. The
Oh,
problem comes when people don't block time off and your schedule's already filled up and 3 to 4 months ahead of time, you need to move an entire week's of appointments, but there's no space to move them. So our opinion is that if we're going to move your appointment after you scheduled it, we're going to accommodate you and make sure we get you in a time that works for you. We're not going to say, oh, which is a problem with non-independent practices. All the time you'll hear, oh, the hospital called me. They canceled my appointment for tomorrow. They can't see me for 2 months. I'm like, that's absurd. That's rude, actually. Anyways, so the key is just really getting that schedule, just asking your what times you need to be off. Sometimes I have a wedding next year, I'm going to go, or just put the weeks off where you know you're going to be. The AP conference, all of us go to that every year. So we're going to block that out a year in advance. We're going to block the holidays out a year in advance, the vacation block out in advance. And people don't mind changing appointments when you give them several month warning.
and so what do you do when you go to the AP and everybody's out?
Right.
You
Yes.
just close and answer calls?
No, we don't close. So actually, when I opened back in 2007, I have a friend of mine, a colleague who has
Yeah.
a practice down the street. She's a really good doctor. She's just really good with the patients. Her focus is more adolescent care, but she's great with all ages. So she covers the office
Okay.
and she's been very helpful. We had one of our doctors was on maternity leave for 3 or 4 months recently. And so that was a little bit busier. So I worked extra. The doctor that was here worked extra. And then our covering doctor came in one day a week to help us with the
Oh,
volume.
great. So you have one on me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. Otherwise, you need a backup. And I do when I was by myself, the families would ask practice interviews.